All right, let's get started as people trickle in. Welcome to our Lunch and Learn at Home series webinar, How to Connect with CU Boulder Interns. My name is Corinne Waldow. I'm the Senior Director of Economic Vitality for the Boulder Chamber. CU Boulder offers a robust program for companies to utilize students and help work on projects, provide valuable experience, and also to give them a direct tie to the businesses and learn both essential skills, workforce skills, and really assist your business. Today, we'll hear from Dylan Mark, Professional Experiences Program Manager, Career Services at the University of Colorado Boulder. Dylan focuses on internships and other professional experiences for students during college. If you have specific questions for Dylan, you can submit the questions using the Q&A tool or the chat feature, and we'll address them after his presentation. We'll also be recording this session to share with businesses, and Dylan will share his contact information should you have any follow-up questions or need additional information. The Boulder Chamber values our partnership and collaboration with CU Boulder, and we look forward to sharing with our members and communities these great opportunities to engage with students. Now, I'll turn it over to Dylan Mark, Professional Experiences Manager with Career Services at the University of Colorado Boulder. Dylan?
Thank you for the introduction, Corinne. I'm happy to be here and happy to join you all to chat about internships. Like Corinne mentioned, I work in Career Services at CU Boulder. We have a central office of Career Services, which is where I'm hubbed, and I work on professional experiences. So anything like internships, part-time work, professional volunteerism, projects, things like that. That's where our area of focus and trying to increase those professional opportunities for students. We really value the opportunity to work with employers in the community and to engage them in the CU community. It gives our students more experience and opportunities for their future and opens doors for them. And hopefully it adds to your company, and the talent at CU Boulder can really help develop your company and develop new programs and pipelines for recruiting and things like that. So happy to be here, happy to support, and yeah, we'll start on the PowerPoint. I'm sorry that I have to do this. I'm gonna start with a silly joke. I heard you have internships. We're the buffs, so I had to throw that in there. And I promise I don't have too many corny things for the rest of the presentation. But yeah, I enjoy putting this at the beginning of the slides. So anyway, so we'll jump to our agenda. First, we'll start with defining internships. We'll talk about what an internship is. We'll talk about the COVID outlook for campus and for internships, professional opportunities, what COVID kind of means for campus and internships right now. We'll talk about navigating CU Boulder. CU Boulder is a huge institution with 30,000 plus students, 6,000 plus staff and faculty. So there's a lot to navigate, and we'll talk about how we can make that big campus small for you in your recruiting and in your hiring of CU's students as interns. We'll talk about recruiting and focus in there, some different strategies, what the most effective things are, and especially thinking about recruiting during COVID, how to recruit virtually and do that effectively. We'll briefly touch on hosting interns virtually and some best practices there. And then we'll also talk about questions and who to contact. I also want to say that I have sent out to Corinne and the Boulder Chamber a document that is the handbook kind of internships at CU. It goes over almost everything you would want to know about internships at CU and hosting a quality intern, and gives you resources and tools and tricks. It's a lot of text, but I wanted to provide as much information for our employers as possible so that you have that at your hands. So that can go out after the presentation. If you ever want that in the future, if you're watching this in the future, you're welcome to email me at dylan, dylan.mark@colorado.edu, and you'll see that contact information at the end as well. And that'll kind of add to maybe this presentation as well. So first off, defining an internship. What is an internship, right? So the essential way that we kind of talk about internships at CU is these are learning experiences for students. Oftentimes employers will go into an internship thinking what they can get out of the internship, and that's fine. Internships are absolutely beneficial to employers, and I want you to think of them as beneficial to your business. But they're also learning experiences for students. And what differentiates them from maybe a part-time job or a volunteer role is that an internship is intended to develop and educate a student along the way. Maybe it's providing new skills to that student or refining their skills. Maybe it's developing knowledge in a field that they don't already have that knowledge. Maybe it's just growing their overall experience and giving them opportunities to practice and apply the skills that they're learning at CU. But really it should be focused on growth and education for the student in a lot of ways. Obviously with the benefits to your company included, it's a win-win kind of situation. Internships, one of the most common questions is, can they be paid or unpaid? And there are different rules there. Paid internships, there's not really a lot of guidelines around that. A paid internship functions much like a paid position would otherwise, a wage job, for example. An internship is going to function like that as well, except you're going to call it an internship. You're going to add that educational component. But as far as like from a business perspective, very similar. For unpaid internships, there are some regulations around those that you should be aware of. If you haven't heard of it, there's a fact sheet called Fact Sheet number 71, released by the Department of Labor. It's a set of guidelines. They're not firm guidelines, but they're an overall compass for whether an internship can be unpaid. Not all internships can be unpaid. If an intern is doing, excessively productive work for your company, they're bringing in a lot of revenue and business, you may consider making that a paid internship instead of an unpaid internship. If there's not as much of an educational component to the internship, it may not be fit for an unpaid internship. So I definitely recommend you check out the Department of Labor guidelines there. Fact sheet number 71, you can Google it, find it really easily. There's a set of 7 kind of guidelines that help to determine whether an internship can be unpaid. None of those 7 prongs, as they call them, are firm. So you'll see one about, tied to academic curriculum. An internship doesn't have to be tied to academic curriculum, but the combination of those 7 prongs help to determine whether an internship can be unpaid. Speaking of tied to an academic curriculum, internships can be both for credit and not for credit. In fact, most internships that are done by CU Boulder students are actually not for credit. The vast majority of them are. I did 3 as an undergrad myself. I work at, I went to CU Boulder, got my sociology degree in 2013, did 3 internships. None of them were actually for credit. Many students do internships for credit. We have a couple thousand, I think, each year do internships for credit, but a lot of students don't do internships for credit. So there's no kind of forced requirement there. And I'll talk about our program at CU and kind of how the formality looks as we go through this presentation. And then timing and hours per week. These are common questions that come up for internships. During the school year, the academic year going from August until May, most internships are going to be maybe 10 to 15 hours a week. Typically not more than that, although some will extend to the 20 to 25 hours. 10 to 15 is kind of that sweet spot of where students want to be and the kind of value that employers want to get. And then timing, they'll go for the academic calendars. So most internships will be, a fall internship, a spring internship, or a summer internship. Fall being August to December, spring being January to May, and then summer being May until August. There's flexibility there, but most students are going to look around that academic calendar. So aligning your internship as best as possible is smart. You can obviously start an internship in September, and even if it's for credit, you can start it in September. But going along that academic calendar is a good way to frame your internship for the student. Let me see. I do want to touch on a couple things as I go through my notes. On paid versus unpaid, I missed one thing that I wanted to talk about, which is the percentage of paid internships at CU that are posted on our online job board Handshake, which I'll talk about. 75% of them are paid. So while you can definitely post unpaid internships, paid internships are going to find you the best students and the highest quality, the ones with the most experience. That said, we welcome unpaid experiences, especially during COVID times where there's fewer opportunities. We understand that not all companies can afford paid interns, but we do encourage you to think about paying for those students and for those internships, and you'll find that you receive better quality. I've spoken with hundreds of employers, through the years about paid versus unpaid internships, and almost all the time I hear, those paid internships get better value. There's more investment from the student when they're getting that pay. So definitely consider that. And then skills that are most in demand are going to be the most expensive as well if you're looking at paid internships. So things like computer science, a lot of the engineering internships are going to be the higher paid positions. Things that require creative expertise or technical expertise typically are going to be a bit more expensive, whereas other maybe lower demand positions can go more towards the minimum wage realm. Pay scale does have some information about pay rates for interns if you want to look that up. And you can always reach out to Career Services, myself or my team, our employer team in my office, to talk about what kind of wage you should be giving for a specific type of internship. With that in mind, I'll keep moving. So obviously there's a lot of value for you in hosting an intern. You're here. Maybe you're hosting them because you want to create a pipeline of students to your company. Maybe you're thinking about giving back. Maybe you're thinking about getting a new perspective and bringing in new energy, new eyes on projects. There's a lot of reasons that employers want to host interns. I think it's important to also frame why the students might be doing internships. I touched on this a little bit, but here's a little graphic to kind of help talk about this. So after reviewing many of the evaluations from internships throughout the years, some of the things that come up more often than not are meaningful work. Students are looking for meaningful work, internships that provide them the opportunity to really work on things that are affecting the company and are affecting the way the company is operating. Students obviously know when the work that they're doing is not really being well utilized or is kind of the typical internship work. They want to be valued and a part of the team. So meaningful work has been super important in reporting positive internships. Cross-functional internships are important. So can students get experience across different teams or across different job functions? Can they work on a few different things and kind of test out what they might be interested in? Remember that students take on internships to understand themselves and their professional development and where they might want to go. So cross-functional teams help to kind of encourage that. Positive impact. Students want to see that positive impact. I think even more nowadays, students are really focused on impacting the world in a positive way. Newer generations keep reporting higher and higher rates of, I want to change the world or I want to positively impact the world. So it's really important to students. Frame your company's mission in a way that shows the positive impact that you do. Pay obviously is important. A lot of students are going to be looking for paid internships. One of the higher search terms in our job board is looking for paid internships. So that's something to consider. Variety, similar to cross-functional, looking for a variety of work. And then skill development. Students are using internships as resume builders and professional launch pads. So the skills that they develop during their internship go a long way for them, and they'll be looking to see what skills they might develop in your internship, what they can kind of carry forward. So that's a good way to frame it from the student's perspective. And I think as you approach recruiting or working with students on campus, it's always good to have that student frame in mind. What are the students thinking? They're your target audience, they're your market, and think of their perspective as you kind of develop your internships. All right, jumping on to a new topic, which is COVID outlook. So for campus, I do want to refer you to the most up-to-date website, which is www.colorado.edu/coronavirus. That website is going to have the most information for the public and our different constituents about how campus is operating during the fall, during the spring, and the rest of the year. Obviously, this is a constantly changing situation, and so campus is constantly updating that website with new information. So if you're ever wondering, what campus will look like, that's your site and that's your place to go. Right now, we are operating with an in-person campus, meaning that students are moving in to campus, that our dorms are, we have residents that are moving into our dorms, and students will be doing in-person classes. Many classes are online or virtual as well, or hybrid, which means that they might be a combination of online and in-person. But right now we're operating with an in-person campus. We do have limited events and visitors, and that's probably going to hold true for the whole semester. So as I talk to employers about recruiting at CU and bringing on interns, they say recruiting will almost entirely be virtual or will be virtual entirely in the fall. So just plan on that. Plan on recruiting virtually. It's probably best to put all of your efforts there, as it's going to be difficult to get onto campus because we're mitigating risk as much as possible of the spread of COVID. We will have ongoing monitoring and adjustments as needed, as I said, so please check the colorado.edu/coronavirus website for more information. How does this specifically impact internships? So in the spring, all the internships that were in person needed to be moved remotely. In mid-March, when we went to remote instruction on campus. And the same will be held true for fall. So right now we're in person, but if we go remote at any point during the semester, the plan is that any internships ought to go remote as well at that time. So plan on that. Plan on, if you're hosting an intern, have, some contingency plans of, okay, suppose campus goes remote, or suppose there's, a state or local lockdown where you're not able to host the intern in person because of essential worker kind of lockdown. Think about how you can pull that internship into either a remote internship or gently, cancel the internship and work with the student to, understand that that is a possibility ahead of time. Hopefully, fingers crossed that isn't the case, and hopefully we have a good, solid semester and that we can keep, risk low and spread low. But that's something to consider and something to think about as you're hosting internships. Also think about hosting safe workplaces. So in that handbook that I sent out to Corinne and the Boulder Chamber to share with you, there are some guides to, some recommendations from CU Boulder on hosting a safe workplace. Those are adopted from the CDC guidelines. And so just keep in mind, keeping students at a distance if you're going to have them in person, and having masks, in the workplace, and cleaning and things like this. Those are going to be important, and we're going to send out those recommendations to any student doing an internship in person, and any employer hosting an internship in person for credit or through a program at CU. So that's our COVID outlook. Navigating CU Boulder. So I'll jump on to the next section. So common question is, how do I sign up for your internship program at CU? We don't have a formal internship program. There's no formal registration process. There's no kind of cross-campus program that you need to register for, which makes it way easier for employers, and I think is a great value add at CU that you don't have to jump through a lot of hoops to host interns. Basically, I see my office, Career Services, as facilitating the connections for you, making it easier to connect to campus and understand how to connect to campus, to recruit students and develop solid internship programs. That's my role here, and my team's role. But we're not going to require you to sign up in advance. That said, we do have an online job board which you can sign up. So it's not, I'm not saying there aren't things that you can do to advertise, but there's no formal registration program, which is nice. We do have a variety of small targeted programs which I can go into depth with you about at a separate time. Quickly, some of those are we have Invest, CU Public Interest Internship Experience, the President's Leadership Class, the Center for Ethical and Social Responsibility, Deming Center for Entrepreneurship, and Startup Summer. Those are just a few examples of the internship programs on campus. If you want to tailor your internship to a program, that's great. We encourage it. Feel free to reach out to me to get a sense of what some of those programs are. And there's not always a programmatic fit. You can absolutely advertise internships without being part of a formalized program at CU. With that in mind, internship credit is not required in Colorado. Some of you may have come from New York or California or New Jersey, where internship credit is required for unpaid internships, but that is not the case here. So you do not need to require internship credit for an internship, even if it's unpaid. That said, if students need an internship credit, they are welcome to look at their academic unit first. Recommend that students kind of opt into these internship credit. So, students in for example, our College of Engineering or Arts and Sciences, many of those students can receive internship credit, and they can determine that by their major. Although many of those internships need to kind of apply directly to what their major is focused on. So a psychology student at this time cannot do a marketing internship, for example. They need to have a clinical psychology focus. But it varies by department. And so that's why I always say let the student opt into credit. But if you are going to require credit of the student, you can do that, and they can sign up for a course called CSVC 1000 through my office. I facilitate that, and so any student can access that, even if their academic department will not allow them to sign up for the internship credit through the department. That's internship credit. Some additional internship policies to keep in mind. Unfortunately, for cannabis companies that are working directly with cannabis products, we cannot host or post any internships or full-time jobs or any positions for companies like that due to our federal grants. So we cannot promote anything related to the direct touching and use of cannabis. That said, if your company is ancillary to the cannabis industry and maybe you are providing equipment and machinery or financial services or marketing, but you never come into contact with cannabis itself through the business, then those companies we can work with and we can promote those opportunities. Students cannot work from home at like a residence of the employer, but they can work from their own home. So remote opportunities are fine, but they can't work at the employer's residence. Students should not go out of pocket. They should not be spending their own money to participate in an internship. There should be no program fees for the internship, and they should not have to buy and invest for doing their own internship. They should not have to buy, required tools or equipment or things. You can have them use their own computer, but besides that, we're not expecting students to go out of pocket. Minimum wage in Colorado is $12 an hour, so we expect that all companies, if they're hosting paid internships, abide by that. You cannot host between unpaid and paid. You can't host like $6 an hour, even if it seems like a better deal for the student that they get some pay. That is below minimum wage and is illegal, and we can't have those posted. So it's either a paid or an unpaid internship for us. And then interns are not contract employees. That's an important distinction. Many employers think that interns can come in as contract employees. They're kind of antithetical definitions. So an intern is someone who's learning and growing and an experienced. A contract employee is someone who comes in with their own expertise and is ready to go day one, basically, without a lot of training. So just some policies to think about. We have those policies listed on our website at colorado.edu/career. If you're interested in going through those in a bit more depth. So navigating CU Boulder, I continued just a little look at our breakdown of majors at CU. So you can see arts and sciences in the gold there takes up the vast majority of our school. There are 18,000 students in our arts and sciences college, or somewhere around that, 16 to 18,000. Next is engineering with around 5 to 6,000, business 4 to 5,000. And you see CMCI, which is the media, communication, and information in green, is around 2,000. We also have education, environmental design, and music as other departments or programs on campus. And so that's the kind of overall outlook at CU. One thing that I tell employers is, if you're really focused on one specific area, maybe expand that a bit. As you can see, arts and sciences is a huge area, and oftentimes employers will go straight to business or engineering, which is great. We have phenomenal students there, but also consider opening up your search to arts and sciences students as well. They've got a wealth of of experience and talent and skills, and even if you're looking for something that is a specific, like a marketing position, which is housed in our business school, many of our arts and sciences students have those skills as well. And are great places to look for those students. So that's a breakdown of CU Boulder. Now we'll move on to recruiting students and some strategy first. So one thing I tell employers is to recruit regularly. As you get ramped up to recruiting at CU, part of the success of recruiting is name brand, and you build that name by recruiting regularly. So come to career fairs often. We will have virtual career fairs. I'll touch on that. But come to career fairs, get on a job board, on Handshake, post positions regularly. Even if you don't succeed the first time, continue at it and try again. Just as we would recommend students, apply to multiple jobs, posting multiple jobs and posting often and regularly is important in being able to pull in students to your company. like I said earlier in the presentation, focus on recruiting from the student's perspective. What do students want to get out of an internship, and how can you support that, right? Think about how they will review your posting and what they will get out of it, and what they'll get out of the position. Make sure that's clear throughout the posting. One recommendation that I'll make is that employers have a section that's, what's in it for you, or what you'll get out of this position, or benefits of this internship, things like that, that kind of clearly relay why a student might want to work for your company, especially if you don't have that name brand. That can be super helpful. Customize and personalize. So when you're recruiting for internships, leave some room for customization. You may find that you recruit a student who's got exceptional skills in an area you hadn't quite considered. Leaving some adaptability and flexibility in there to customize an internship for a student is important. And then more along the lines of being flexible and adaptable. Student schedules are chaotic. Obviously with COVID, they can be a little bit more chaotic. So be adaptable and flexible in the timelines that you have for students and when they're working, and even things like being flexible around midterms, right? That goes a long way for students. So think about that in advance as you're setting up internships and recruiting for students. So some ways to recruit virtually in this COVID environment. We have our Handshake online job and internship platform. Handshake is incredible. We have thousands of students using it every month, and thousands of logins even weekly, which is great. Our students really appreciate it. And it's a great tool to connect with students. It is connected to other schools, so it's also an advantage for you. But specifically to CU, it's the #1 and primary and only really job board at CU that we're promoting to students. It's also the place that you would sign up for career fairs and events. So it's a good tool to get on and jump around, and you can see the kind of fairs and events that we're hosting coming up. And we will be hosting virtual fairs and events throughout the semester. We have the fall semester planned. You can see all of those events online now and sign up for those. The way that those will work quickly is that they will be video chats. You will be able to sign up for either group sessions or individual sessions with students. You'll post those and students will sign up for them for open time slots. It's a new system and we're going to adjust to it, but I think it's got a lot of great potential, and it'll be something that we carry forward even after COVID. I imagine some of this virtual recruiting will be valuable to employers. And I will get more into Handshake in case you're wondering, but for now, I'll keep jumping on this list. Mentorship is another possibility for connecting to CU. And in fact, our Alumni Association just opened up a brand new Buffs kind of alumni network. And I'm happy to communicate that to you and get you the resources for that. But it's an opportunity to connect with students in a mentorship capacity. It will be open to recruiters. Right now it's open to alumni to get involved and to get connected, but eventually it'll open up to recruiters as well, sometime mid this semester, maybe in September or October. And is a great way to kind of, connect with students in a non-internship, non-job way, but build your brand and build your presence on campus. Mentorship is also a great way to kind of test run students and get a sense of, who's out there. Obviously, if you're providing mentorship, it's for the student, but you may get to connect with some really qualified students and some really interesting students, that could lead to connections for you down the line. So mentorship is another way to get involved on campus. Student groups, typically a great way to get involved as well. I imagine a lot of their operations are going to be virtual this semester, so there may be ways for you to get involved virtually. You can look up our student groups online. We've got word of mouth. I think that's the maybe most underutilized tool for recruiting for employers on campus, which is, if you have a student or an alum who is a part of your company and is connected to campus still, have them promote you guys. I've heard of companies that hire students after an internship to go be ambassadors for the company on campus. Word of mouth is one of the strongest ways that students will kind of latch on to different programs. We've seen that in programs that we host. When students hear it from other students or from their peers, they're more likely to subscribe to it and apply to an internship. So utilize word of mouth, any connections you have to campus, professors, staff members. And speaking of, lean on our employer relations team in career services. We have a great team dedicated to supporting employers across Boulder and Colorado and the country. So lean on that team to help you get connected to campus and to help, again, make the campus small for you. So Handshake, as I mentioned, this is kind of the look and branding of Handshake a little bit. They use blue and yellow, so you'll see that often. But this is our online job and internship platform. When you go to sign up, it'll look something like this. They are making updates to it, so it won't always look like this, but you click on that employer link. It's a fairly quick sign up, and what you'll do is as you fill all this information out, you'll say, you know, where you went to school, who you are, what your company is, what your company does, where your company is, all this kind of stuff. And then you'll select schools and universities to post to. So over on that left-hand side of the screen, you can see, you can select schools, you can create a relationship with CU Boulder. You'll request CU Boulder as a school that you can post to, and we'll approve you. If you ever have difficulties with that, reach out to an employer relations specialist and we can help out in getting you connected to our Handshake. And just know that as you start on Handshake, sometimes it can be hard to kind of build momentum. And so if you apply to 500 schools at once, you may get rejected. And there is something called a trust score on Handshake. So us on the career services side, on the university side, can see that. And we may not approve employers that have a really low trust score. So as you start, ramp up with schools that you're familiar with, ramp up with CU Boulder, connect with me, let me know that you've posted, or let one of our employer team specialists know that you're trying to get involved, and we'll approve you and get you started on the right foot. Obviously, we want you recruiting CU Boulder students, so that's a great place to start anyways. This is what it'll look like when you're going around and you can see a student profile. This is one of my colleagues, he's an alum, but this would generally be what it looks like. You can message students. You're limited unless you buy the premium package from Handshake, but you do get a little bit of messaging, and you can see some of the students out there who have made their profiles public. When we first started this, 25% of students had opted to make their profile public. I think that's increased a bit as well. So there's a lot of public profiles that you can kind of sort through and see, and reach out to students that kind of fit your needs. This will be what your company profile looks like. You can add some visuals there as well, and some more information if you'd like to kind of describe what you're doing. You can see our trust score over to the right. That's out of 100. It's rarely perfect, but there you go. And then this is a test position, kind of looks like what it'll look like on your end for the job. So you can see a lot of the things in here, pay rate, the size of your company, industry, job functions, preferences on what schools you'll be applying to, or what colleges and majors you'll be open to. You can put in a job description, application link, all of that kind of stuff, typical things that you would have on a job and internship board. If you have any questions about this, you can always reach out to Jake. You see his information there, or folks at the end of the presentation, and you'll see their contact information. So some quick tips on using Handshake. And yes, I did ironically use a typewriter in the background. Post early and often. That's important. As I said, recruiting regularly is important to building your brand on campus. Clear and direct job titles. And one thing during COVID that's really important is putting remote or virtual in your job title. Students are searching on that, and it was the #1 search term was remote before COVID took place. And now, obviously, with COVID and everyone working remote, I imagine remote is even a higher searched right now. So put remote in the internship or job title as you are recruiting at CU. Cast a wide net and then narrow down later. So as I mentioned, be open to as many majors as possible, and then see the type of students you bring in, and then narrow down from there. The more applicants you can get, the better. But if a student logs in and they see they're not a fit for your job right away, they're not likely to apply, and you might be missing on some high quality students in our other majors that you're not looking for. Include images, make the post dynamic and inviting, maybe send it to someone to kind of review it. There are a lot of stale kind of just point by point job descriptions out there, and I think making your post inviting and dynamic is how you'll get students to apply to it. Remember, this is marketing for your company, and students may not know who you are, and so making it clear what the culture is of your company and what you do and why a student might want to work there is important. Detail how much you may pay. A lot of companies don't put this information out there, and it'll make a student less likely to apply. Just as everything, with more uncertainty, people are less likely to take action. The more certainty you give people, the more likely they are to take action. So detail how much you pay. That's important. Add a what's in it for you section to the job description, as I mentioned earlier, and craft the position from the student's lens. For more tips, set clear and sensible guidelines for applications. Don't make a student jump through 50 hoops to apply to your company. Again, it'll make them less likely to apply. I've seen companies require, a writing sample, a reference, a job description, or a resume, and a cover letter, and whatever else. The more that you ask for, the less likely students are to apply. I get it if you need a portfolio because you've got a creative or technical position, but try to limit it and think of what is going to make a student apply the most. Follow up with every student who applies. That's one of the no-nos from employers that I hear from students that really ekes them the wrong way, just as you would want to hear from any student that you reached out to. Students want to hear back from you, even if they are not a fit. It's also helpful for the student if you can provide some feedback and say, hey, I thought you were great, you just don't have enough experience at this point. Or, hey, we're actually looking for someone with skills in this, this, and this. Maybe if you develop those, we can look for them. Or, hi, your cover letter didn't quite clearly show that you're interested in applying for our company. And it didn't seem like we aligned in mission, so we don't think you're a fit. Whatever it is, that feedback goes a long way for our students, and we appreciate employers who take the time to do that. Students appreciate it as well. Watch your trust score as well. That's another thing to monitor. And remember that the candidate experience you have starts at the job description and indicates the culture of your company. So try to get across the culture, whether that's a fun, hardworking culture, or it's a technical and innovative culture. Whatever culture you really want to pass off to the student, think about that in the job description that you post. So a few updates on hosting interns virtually. Things to think about as you're kind of going to this remote work and bringing on interns in a virtual setting. Update technology and processes and get students onboarded with those immediately. Get them used to the different technology that you have, and make sure that there is enough technology. Do you need a task management software? Do you need any storage capabilities so that students can share their progress on work? What is it that you need, and have that prepped ahead of time? There's great research out there. I'm happy to consult with you, and the handbook that I provide as well goes into a little bit more depth on some of the types of technology you might want to think about. Onboarding is even more important. Solid onboarding is really important to internships. It sets off the internship on the right foot. Some companies will do week-long onboarding. They'll bring together multiple interns and create community. Some companies will, have an intern kind of shadow their supervisor for a day or two, learn the quality and expectations that they're, supposed to have. Whatever it is, make sure that you are very intentional about onboarding, and that you bring in students to your culture and your expectations really well. Especially from the virtual setting, make sure you dedicate the time to students. Have a few hours dedicated to it. Don't just have 1 hour and then, okay, you're off to work. Make sure that you really dedicate and show that you're invested in students. Communication and consistency is even more important during virtual internships. So communicate regularly, do regular check-ins. I know some employers will do, just a feedback at the end of an internship. Maybe do feedback 3 times during a virtual internship, and formal feedback in that case, so that you're really giving students the opportunity to learn and grow as they're going through it, and so that they're not straying too far. Obviously, in a virtual setting, it's a little harder to track everything. So making sure that you're on top of it and communicating and consistent is important. I think assigning work goes in there as well. And then maintain a positive culture. Maybe you do something fun every week or every other week with the interns. If that's even 15, 20 minutes of, some kind of fun team building activity, or some, conversing, just a regular check-in on just how they're doing and who they are, or whatever. that you're building that personal touch as well. Obviously, we've all got a lot of work to do right now, so you can't dedicate too much time to it, but maintaining that positive culture, that atmosphere will be important. Will keep students invested for the long term. With that, I may have wrapped up a little quick. I think we have a little bit of time for Q&A at the end of this. I do want to provide contact list here. We've got the arts and sciences. April Abernethy is our employer specialist in career services, who's going to be focusing on A&S and connecting you over there. Amanda Hansen is in our business school. They have their own office of career strategy for students, and she oversees the employer team in business. She can help connect you over to business. Engineering is my colleague Jay Lampy. She's amazing, holds together a lot, and is a great resource if you're connecting to our engineering school, which includes computer science as well. Our College of Media, Communication, and Information Sciences. This includes things like advertising, media studies, communication, journalism, info science. That'll be Christine Mahoney is your primary contact. And then for cross-campus internship questions, if you're just looking to broadly connect, as I definitely recommend you do, you can connect to me, you can connect to other colleagues on my team. One person I didn't mention is Jake Jadamis-Danu, who you saw earlier in the slide deck. He's working more with CMCI alongside Christine Mahoney, as well as some of our other colleges like education, music, and elsewhere. And he's a great resource. Knows a lot about Handshake and help you get connected. Regardless, whoever you reach out to, we're happy to get you to the best point of contact. That's our goal, is to help make campus smaller for you, to facilitate connections and get our students in more internships and opportunities. So with that, I think I'll wrap up the presentation and turn it over to Corinne. I don't know if any questions.
No, I have some questions.
Great.
For you. So you say that you can go to arts and sciences or when you're maybe looking for a different area. How do you know which schools you might want to get an internship out of or an intern out of? If you've always gone to business and there are other options, how do you navigate that as a business?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's a great question. That's why I provided my contact information there. I'm happy to be that first point of contact, and then zip you off to the right kind of niches on campus. So if you want to reach out to me and learn, you have a marketing position, you're wondering which kind of degrees might align most with the marketing position, I'm happy to do that. You've got a finance position, which degrees, outside of business might connect to finance, happy to do that for you. I've got a host of internship contacts around campus who are running the credit programs. I'm happy to share out positions to those folks and get them to a more targeted audience for you once you get it on Handshake. So I think starting with me, but also, my colleagues in my office, April, Jay, and Jake, are all three great contacts for getting you connected to all of campus. We've all served in roles that, we've worked with different departments around campus, and we can definitely help you get, better connected.
Okay, so you mentioned virtual job fairs, and we have a question as to how does a virtual job fair actually work? Like what kind of resources do you have to put into it? How does it work for a company?
Yeah, so it's in process. We're developing all of those resources right now so that you'll have it, and it will be online at colorado.edu/career. If you click on our employer tab, you'll be able to see some of that information on there. Basically, what it'll look like is you'll sign up for whichever fair is the best fit for you. So we have a variety of fairs, things like our technical and our technology and STEM fair. We've got different fairs within engineering, different fairs within business and CMCI, and we've got an all-campus kind of general fair. So you sign up for the one that you think is the best fit. You can always reach out to our team and figure out which one is the best fit for you. Then once you sign up, your company will be asked to create slots. Those will be individual slots or group information slots. The group information slots, I believe, can have up to 50 students at them. The individual slots will be short, I think 15-minute long connections with students, and those will be one-on-one. They'll all be through a video platform on Handshake. So the video goes completely through Handshake. It operates very similar to Zoom or other video conferencing platforms. And you'll just connect with students in that way. Then students will sign up for these slots. and they can pick and choose, which companies they're most interested in connecting with.
So in a world where we can't have live handshakes, we're going to have virtual handshakes in a lot of ways. So you're creating the platform for it. Handshake I think all of us think of Handshake very differently these days.
Yes, yeah, Handshake's expanding.
So whose responsibility is it to take care of the credit part of internships? And are there certain competencies that will have to be taught or followed by the business in order for someone to get credit for that internship?
Thank you. That's an awesome question. And I'm glad I can touch on that. So it depends on the department. Every department's going to have a little bit of different requirements for an internship. Some may be more focused on the internship itself. For example, CMCI, many of their internship credit opportunities are really going to be focused on getting value out of the internship. Whereas some of the other internships on campus might have a research component or a paper component or even an in-class component to them, like psychology has an in-class component to it. So it'll depend on the department exactly what it'll look like, but the weight of the internship will fall on the student and the instructor of record for it. You may be asked as an employer to get across a couple things or to communicate a few things through the internship. But the primary responsibility for employers is going to be filling out like a learning plan at the beginning of an internship for what the internship will look like, and then filling out evaluations either midway through and at the end or just at the end of the internship. That's going to be most of the responsibility for employers, as well as communicating with the internship credit host on campus, whichever department that is.
So just to follow on to that question, are most students looking for skill development in technical skills or foundational, more of those soft skills through the internship?
I think it's a combination. I would say technical is something that they're looking for a bit more, just because I think that's better branding for them later on, if they can have some technical skills that they've developed in work. So I definitely encourage any, company looking at developing skills, look at developing some technical skills in students, but certainly, things like communicating with clientele or, managing time and things like this. These are, applications of what they're doing in the classroom, and these are soft skills that are great for them to develop during internships. So I'd say it's both, but I think the things that maybe ring off the page a bit more for students are going to be those hard skills that they can see as helping to brand themselves and helping to further themselves. We pride ourselves, obviously, at CU as putting in a lot of those softer skills for students and getting critical thinking and communication and teamwork, and a lot of that. Hopefully, our students are coming well prepared for those.
It probably is good for businesses and employers to emphasize and stress the importance of those soft skills, those communications, conflict management, critical thinking, collaboration through the internship to show how valuable those skills are for any job.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember that these are students' first professional experiences. So when you reflect back at them, hey, this is an opportunity to learn a communication skill, or hey, this is an opportunity to apply some critical thinking or problem solving. That's a great thing for students to kind of reflect on during the internship. Helps them kind of, learn more about themselves and apply what they've been learning at CU.
So from your experience, Dylan, is it better to hire more than one intern so there's a cohort and they can work together, or have you seen success in either model?
Mm-hmm. I think it depends. Starting out, hire one intern, make sure you know what an internship is like. Sometimes employers will get a little over their heads with internships, won't provide enough work. The work might not be meaningful because they're overwhelmed with too many interns, too many things. Maybe they have their own, duties, and they just don't have enough time to carve out for interns. It's good to pilot it and test it out. Hire one intern for a semester, set an end date on that, and then start the next semester, pursuing more internships if you feel that's a good fit. If you have, 25 hours of work that you're like, I need 25 hours filled for my company this semester, maybe divide that into two. If it's during the semester, because, students are looking for that 10 to 15 hour sweet spot.
So remote job training and management is tough, whether they're an intern or for everybody right now. I know you provide the handbook, But are there some best practices for employers on how to manage you talked about some of them, but are you able to provide some best practices on some of the projects that interns are doing remotely, and some of the ways that they're integrating into the team when this is, I mean, it's a tough battle for all businesses right now?
Yeah, I think there's two separate things there, and I do go into a little depth in the handbook, so hopefully that's a resource for you. But to touch on a couple of them right now, some of what you might look for from connecting with staff, maybe do a lunch and learn, right? Like you typically have lunches in the office where people are able to connect and kind of sit around a table together. Maybe you make that a little bit more intentional for students who haven't been a part of your company to be able to connect with some of the staff. Maybe you encourage an intern to have 15-minute info sessions or 30-minute info sessions with people on your staff, informational interviews where they can say, what did you do to get into the role that you have? What are the things you've learned along the way in your professional arc? That way students can kind of grow and learn from the staff around you. Sometimes it's hard for students to do that themselves, and especially if they're coming into a situation where they're not walking past colleagues in the hallway of your office, or they're not seeing them at the staff meeting table. Having them in these group settings, staff meetings is another one. You invite them to staff meetings, where they can attend. These are great ways to get them involved in the culture and the other staff that you have on your team. As far as best practices for assigning work, I think really providing a variety of projects can be useful. One recommendation I have for employers that I think is even more applicable during COVID times is to set a variety of levels for work. So maybe you have your high priority, your medium priority, and your low priority tasks. And you set a bunch of low priority tasks for students that they can work on throughout the semester. Some of them may require less training and development, but maybe it's just a little bit of research that they can do, competitive market research, or whatever it is that they can do on their free time if they've run through some of their work. You've got your medium priority tasks, which are maybe longer term projects or things like that, that they can work on throughout the semester. I know students really love when they can develop and design their own project. So maybe you allow them to develop their own project based on what they learn in their internship to help advance your company. And it helps you also get a different perspective. And then you've got obviously your high priority tasks, things that need to get done each week, each day. And so you set those out for students so that they have a lot of different things to work on, and they can kind of start prioritizing some of it themselves and start having a lot of different work. A couple recommendations for you.
Thank you. That's great, Dylan. So if the internship is not really able to go remote, should we wait until after COVID or those restrictions are lifted before hiring an intern?
Yeah, it's so hard to predict. The goal of campus is to stay open as long as possible, and to hopefully stay open the whole semester. That's our goal. That's why we're doing all of this risk mitigation, is to really create this in-person experience for our students, and hopefully do that in the community as well. So we are encouraging employers to host in-person internships. If you are doing that and you have a feeling that if it goes remote, you're just not going to be able to host the internship anymore, just be upfront about that. But I think the more opportunities, the better that are out there. And it can be a good way to engage with students. That said, predicting the future is really difficult right now. I understand it's difficult for us as well. And so, if you feel like it may not be worth the time to put in, that's okay. Maybe think, are there other projects? Can you maybe create an internship that's fewer hours a week, even 5 hours a week, that can keep the student engaged if it goes remote? I know a lot of companies adapted their internships quite a bit in the spring because they use internships as pipelines for students, and they wanted to show that they were still invested in the students and their professional development.
So in Handshake, when you're posting the job description, would you recommend that a business, and this is because of COVID, would you recommend a business talk a little bit about the safety protocols they might be going through or doing as a staff, and how they may be going above and beyond, and what safety equipment's provided in that description?
Yeah, actually, that's a great point, and something that's absolutely good to put in there. I've seen a few employers put in how they're following safety guidelines, and that they have the students' interest in mind, and all of that. I think that is useful for a lot of students who maybe having some anxiety and tension right now, that can help ease some lows. You know, if you'd like to be in person but you can go remote, maybe you put that in there as well. And yeah, you put in some of the mitigation strategies that you have, so students know that they're walking into a place that really respects, you know, the gravity of COVID and everything that's going on right now.
All right, I have one final question for you. So we live in a college town. Boulder is a college town. We want to protect our herd. We have all of this going on. We see students coming back. We also have a lot of people that are unemployed, and we could hire those. What's the value add for a business to bring in an intern and connecting with CU Boulder?
I think the value add is to really, you know, like connecting with CU and connecting with students, build a pipeline for your company. This is stuff that'll last a long time. Companies that bring on interns can have full-time employees pulled from those programs. It also brings in great perspective and great information from those students. I've talked to dozens of employers who have, you know, had amazing interns completely shape the way that they're going to do projects and programs in the future. Build out new programs and build out new projects and areas of work. Otterbox, for example, is one company that had an intern come in as a sustainability intern. And they had never had a sustainability department until this intern came in. Now they have a whole division dedicated to sustainability and how do they practice sustainable practices within their business. And they're saving money because of it, because sustainability also goes hand in hand with saving money. And so you never know what might come out of that. It's also a leadership development opportunity for your staff. If you've got folks who you're like, they could be great supervisors or managers in the future, maybe, you know, having students involved is a great way to kind of test that out and give them the opportunity to assign work and lead and mentor. There's so many advantages to bringing CU Boulder students in, and I think getting connected to campus too. There's so many other great ways to get connected to campus, whether it's hosting projects or volunteers or, you know, branding yourself on campus. If you're selling things, even having interns can be a great way to brand. There's so many advantages to tapping into the talent at CU that are, you know, both short-term and long-term advantageous.
And I'll give you a plug. In my last 6 years at the Boulder Chamber, I've had a CU intern for 5 of those 6 years in economics. And they usually came, I wasn't seeking them out, they came to me. And something I've learned is that don't assume they don't know how to do something or they can't pick it up quickly, even if that's something that took you years to learn because it wasn't part of your normal day. In some cases, it's a lot quicker for students, whether they're high school or college, to pick up on some of these technologies, programs, great solution options for problems you may have. They might have different options and solutions to offer in the situation. So, you know, we try to walk the walk and have a CU intern. We usually have a high school intern as well, so that we're able to tell businesses this is really a great opportunity for you to engage with students in our town. So.
Yeah, that's
great.
great.
I don't have any more questions. Dylan, do you have any last thoughts? And then we can close this up.
No, just, yeah, please do not feel, you know, a burden. Reach out to us. Let us know if you're interested in recruiting interns and even full-time jobs and everything like that. Reach out to our team. We're happy to help. We've got a great supportive staff and happy to get you connected. And thank you so much to the Boulder Chamber for giving us the opportunity to speak and share, you know, about internship. Thank you, Corinne and Tyler, for setting this up.
Thank you, Dylan, and we look forward to continuing to work with you. So until next time.